It is 2 p.m. in New York, 7 in London, and 4 on a Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gan-young. This is ARIRANG, Korea's only global network. President Park Geun-hye has reiterated her call for extensive deregulation in the nation's service sector as a way to stimulate job creation. The Korean leader made the comments during a meeting with ministers of health, labor, and gender equality on Tuesday at the government complex in the central administrative city of Sejong. Now, she added that creating decent jobs for young people would be impossible without a drive toward deregulation in the service sector, where she said a number of quality jobs for young people can be created. The president also underscored the importance of creating a social welfare system designed to support people at various points in their lives that will in turn boost employment and the economy. Now, the government's economic policies are being put through the ringer at the National Assembly on this Tuesday, and Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Hyun-woo is the Park administration's man in the hot seat. The ruling Saenuri Party is focusing on what the government is doing to achieve a 70% employment rate and to lay the groundwork for a per capita income of $40,000 during President Park's term. The ruling party is also demanding the government collect and disclose information about public sector organizations that are laxly or unethically managed, in line with the president's pledge to reform the sector. The main opposition Democratic Party is urging the government to move cautiously with free trade agreements and come up with better protective measures for farmers, saying their average income is just 80% of the national average. Now, moving on, heavy snowfall on North Korea's Mount Geum-hye could threaten an upcoming round of reunions for families separated by the war. An official at the Unification Ministry said Tuesday that Mount Geum-hye had seen over 2 meters of snow as of Monday. The official said a South Korean delegation left for the north this morning to inspect the site following an emergency meeting Monday night. 9 snowplows are working around the clock to clear the site in time for the reunion event slated for February 20th to the 25th, that's next week. But at least one more snowfall is expected before then. The official said the reunions have taken place in the past where Mount Geum-hye had over 1.5 meters of snow, adding that no major problems arose because of the snow. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is putting a bold new emphasis on agriculture and changing what he sees as an equal but highly unproductive distribution system. Our Kwon So-hwa reports.
Kim Jong-un is trying to drive competition in his country's agriculture sector. In a letter to agricultural leaders released after a national conference, Kim signaled that he plans to make reforms to the current system. He emphasized the need to boost productivity by accelerating farmers' efforts, saying the current equal distribution system is the reason for a lack of enthusiasm. He added the current system, which distributes a fixed amount of produce to farm workers, does not go hand in hand with the state's distribution principles. Individuals' efforts will be incentivized in the future to build a more competitive structure.
Apart from the amount of harvest fixed by the country, workers who made extra efforts should receive extra compensation.
Kim also is pushing ahead with a system which was briefly introduced in 2002, which gives part of a field to 3 to 5 people and ranks their compensation according to their productivity. While the changes reflect Kim Jong-un's ambitious plans to revitalize the economy, it remains to be seen whether the new system will be able to surmount the nation's chronic food shortages. Kwon So-hwa, ARIRANG News.
The White House is very disappointed North Korea decided to cancel an invitation for the top U.S. human rights envoy to visit Pyongyang to discuss the release of imprisoned American missionary Kenneth Bae. But there may be some light at the end of the tunnel as a former U.S. ambassador to South Korea landed in Pyongyang Monday on unspecified business. Our UDN reports.
The United States has expressed its deep regret over North Korea's decision to withdraw its invitation to U.S. Human Rights Envoy Robert King to discuss the release of Korean-American Kenneth Bae.
Well, I can tell you that we are deeply disappointed by the DPRK decision for a second time to rescind its invitation for Ambassador King to travel to Pyongyang to discuss Kenneth Bae's release.
While the reason for the withdrawal is not yet clear, a State Department official said it could be related to the upcoming joint military drill between South Korea and the U.S. The White House drew a clear line between the two issues.
We remind the DPRK that the U.S. ROK military exercises are transparent, regularly scheduled, and defense-oriented. These exercises are in no way linked to Mr. Bae's case, and we believe they know that.
The White House says it will continue to push North Korea to agree to let King visit. But hopes for Bae's quick release haven't completely faded. On Monday, North Korea received a delegation led by former U.S. Ambassador to South Korea, Donald Gregg, who experts believe will aim to win Bae his freedom. Without offering details on his unannounced visit to Pyongyang, Gregg merely stated he was glad to be back.
Very happy to be back in Pyongyang, my first time in about 8 years. So we're looking forward to talks and happy to see you. Thank you.
Gregg served as Washington's envoy to Seoul from 1989 to 1993 and has since called for greater engagement with North Korea. And his surprise visit is raising hopes for Bae's swift release. Bae was arrested by North Korean authorities after entering the country in November 2012 and was later sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for alleged crimes against the state. 유리안, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, the U.S. state of New York is stepping up efforts to use the name East Sea for the body of water between Korea and Japan after Virginia's state legislature recently passed a similar bill. In a press conference Monday, a group of state lawmakers and Korean American community members said they had submitted related bills to the upper and lower houses in the state. The bills require the use of the name East Sea and Sea of Japan in all school textbooks published after July 1st. The Korean American community is hoping to see the bills pass in May. Now, last week, the Virginia House of Delegates passed a bill requiring that the State Education Board only approve textbooks that use both names. The bill will be sent to Governor Terry McAuliffe for him to sign it into law. Now, China and Taiwan are gearing up for their first government-to-government meeting since their split in 1949. During the historic meeting, which is set for later today, the two sides are expected to renew their political and economic ties. ARIRANG News Kim Ji-yeon reports.
China and Taiwan are about to begin their highest-level talks in more than 6 decades. Zhang Zijin, the head of China's Taiwan Affairs Office, and his Taiwanese counterpart Wang Weiqi are to meet in China's eastern city of Nanjing on Tuesday afternoon. The two sides are likely to discuss ways to pursue economic reconciliation, and Beijing may push for passage of a stall-free trade agreement with Taiwan. Many expect the meeting could become the basis for a future summit between Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Taiwanese counterpart Ma Ying-jeou, possibly around the time of this year's APEC summit in Beijing in October. China and Taiwan split at the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949. China regards Taiwan as part of its territory and has said repeatedly that it will reclaim the island, while Taiwan wants to be seen as an independent country. The conflict has created a decades-long military standoff between the United States and China, as the U.S. is committed to defending the democracy-based Taipei against communist Beijing. Ties between China and Taiwan improved radically after Taiwan's pro-Beijing President Ma Ying-jeou was elected in 2008. Since then, tourists from mainland China have boosted Taiwan's economy. Taiwanese technology firms have expanded in the mainland, their investments worth billions of dollars. But there is also speculation that the friendly terms will not last, since President Ma and his pro-Beijing policy is deeply unpopular among the Taiwanese people. Analysts say Ma's Kuomintang party is likely to lose local elections slated for later in the year. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
With rapid changes in the global economy, up-to-date business and financial news has never been more essential. See what's making markets tick around the globe. We speak to the experts and cover the biggest financial stories.
North Korea provocation.
Quite good. We received a lot of positive feedback, especially from those
The world's biggest plane maker, Boeing, expects nearly half of the world's air traffic growth over the next 20 years to be driven by the Asia-Pacific region. But the U.S.-based company is monitoring local currencies to assess airlines' ability to meet orders. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
With billions of dollars in deals expected to be concluded before it's all over on Sunday, the Singapore Air Show is sure to test the appetites of one of aviation's fastest-growing regions. On the eve of the region's premier aerospace event, Boeing reiterated its 20-year forecast for global airplane demand at $4.8 trillion and predicted that the fleet of aircraft in the Asia-Pacific would nearly triple over the next 2 decades.
Well, as we look out the next 20 years, the Asia-Pacific market will be the largest marketplace in the world. We expect passenger traffic to grow about 6.3% per year, cargo traffic at 5.8%. And as a result of this growth, we see a total demand of close to 13,000 airplanes here in the Asia-Pacific region.
Boeing projects that passenger airlines in the Asia-Pacific region will rely primarily on single-aisle airplanes such as its next-generation 737, largely thanks to the success of low-cost carriers. Boeing said single-aisle airplanes will represent 69% of the new planes in the region. The growth in the single-aisle planes will also be fueled by rising demand from China, meaning that Boeing will likely face competition from local companies like Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China in the future.
It's also a market where we see the biggest demand for single-aisle airplanes like the 737. And I think it's not by accident then that COMAC is focusing on that single-aisle market to bring their new airplane to the market.
To meet the growing demand, Boeing says it is planning to do a better job of delivering planes to its clients on time. Currently, the company has a schedule reliability of about 98%. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
The savings rate of Korea's manufacturing firms has more than doubled in the last 30 years, and while tucking more money away might be good news for a person, the opposite tends to be true for businesses. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance said Tuesday that the firm's savings rate jumped from 7.4% in 1975 to over 15% in 2011. Now, after evaluating the savings rate of other OECD members, Korean firms had the 4th highest savings rate, up 8 notches since year 2000. Experts say the government should provide incentives to prevent companies from excessive saving, as that money could be used to invest and grow the firm. Japan was at the top of the savings list, followed by the Netherlands and Estonia. Now, those with the lowest savings rates were Portugal, France, and Italy. Meanwhile, here on the local bourse, Seoul shares inched up on this Tuesday to hit their highest intraday level in almost 2 weeks as index giants Samsung Electronics rose in bargain hunting, but gains were capped before the new U.S. Central Bank chief speaks to Congress. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi finished up nearly 0.5% at 1932, its highest since January 29th. The tech Kosdaq also closed up nearly 0.1%, while on the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency closed stronger against the greenback at roughly 1,071 won. It is about 11:15 a.m. on day 4 of competitions at the Winter Olympic Games in Sochi, and various events are already underway, including women's round-robin session at the Ice Cube Curling Center there. But just to give you a quick recap of day 3 of medal events, the headline of the day was the men's 500-meter speed skating event. Well, Koreans had high hopes going into the event, with Team Korea's Mo Tae-bum being one of the favorites to win a medal at the event. But the evening ended with a Dutch skater sweeping the podium. As for Mo Tae-bum, despite a fairly good start, Korea's Motorbum finished the first race with the final time of 34.84 seconds, and the second race clocking in at 34.85 seconds for a combined 69.69 seconds to finish 4th overall. And while the Vancouver gold medalists failed to stand on the podium this time, the Netherlands continue to dominate the sport, sweeping all 3 medals as Michel Mulder, Jan Smeekers, and Ronald Mulder took the podium in the event. Moving over to Korea's longtime medal favorite, short track speed skating. Well, Team Korea didn't quite get close to clinching the first medal in the men's 1500 short track event, as Lee Han-bin was the only Korean skater to qualify for the finals. And it looked like the pressure might have been just too much for the 25-year-old. With Lee Han-bin never looking sharp in the final race, he fell to the 6th place in the final, but Russia's Viktor An Hyun-soo managed to finish with a bronze medal, claiming his first Olympic medal in 8 years. And while his 3rd place finish gave some joy to the Korean fans, it was Charles Hamlin of Canada who finished first, followed by China's Han Tianyu. And some good news for all the fans in the nation, as the South Korean women's short track team dominated during the 500-meter and the 3,000-meter relays. First off, all 3 Korean skaters, Shim Seok-ki, Kim Ha-rang, and Park Geun-hye advanced during the 500-meter heats, but it was during the women's 3,000-meter relay semis where Park Geun-hye, Shim Seok-ki, Kong Sang-jung, and Cho Hae-ri absolutely dominated, as they're set to go after the gold medal on the 18th of this month. So it is day 4 at the Winter Olympics, and for the next 2 weeks, all eyes will be on the frozen Russian ski resort of Sochi. Not only is the Olympics one of the most prestigious sporting events for the athletes, it's also one of the most valuable sporting events in history in more than one sense. Now, since the LA Games of 1984, it has become evident that the symbolic Olympic rings have become a money-churning monster that just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and Sochi 2014 will be no different. For more on the companies using the event as a multinational marketing platform, we're joined live in the studio by Dr. Kim Byung-ju, the head of KLMP Consulting, and of course, our regular commentator on this program. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Now, so it's been a known news that corporates use this opportunity to as a marketing platform, and we know that global companies really take this Olympic Games as a really the good stake, especially this Winter Olympics. What are they looking at?
Well, basically, they're looking at 2 things. First of all, the local market of the hosting country itself. We're talking about 143 million people of this country, Russia itself, and the overall, their GDP is about $2 trillion US dollars, slightly below that. That's not a small market at all. Actually, they are talking about the potential, market potentials itself. Russia stands somewhere around like number 7th in the world after the United States, China, India, and so on. So this is a very important market that these global companies are having their eyes on. Plus, of course, the second aspect of this is the global market itself. It's they're talking about 1 billion people all around the world actually watching the games this time. And so that's not a small number at all. And those companies that have their market outreach all around the world, for them, it's a very important occasion. And this is a kind of like a condensed opportunity to improve or enhance their global image around the world for those people who are watching these games. And with this extended period of time of game being played out from February 7th until 23rd, this is like continuously, extended coverage where they can get their, images being broadcasted through the TVs and so on. So very important opportunity, and especially for those top 10 official sponsors, official partners for the games.
Corporate partners.
Yeah, corporate partners. It's very important.
Right. I mean, this is just constant exposure to people all across the globe. So this must be a golden opportunity for them.
Right.
Now, as for the official corporate partner that you just mentioned, what are the qualifications a company needs to become a part of them?
There are 10 of them indeed, and to be selected as one of the top 10s, these corporations will have to pay $100 million US dollars to the IOC, International Olympics Committee. And plus, on top of that $100 million US dollars, usually reports are saying they'll have to spend at least another $100 million US dollars to offer support and to do those things that are necessary to make them recognizable as the official corporate partners.
So we're thinking that a company normally would make more than $110 million from this Olympics event, I would assume.
Right.
Now, so what are the extra kinds of support that the partners have to provide?
Lots of different things. They offer the supply for the games, the things that the athletes use, all the athletes use, they're the official supplier of these goods. But on top of that, they offer extra things. For instance, P&G, Procter & Gamble have been offering extra supplies of daily necessities on top of the common supplies that they need. And they all actually selected about 33 mothers around the world who have their children participating as athletes, as their kind of like, the commercial models or whatever, and speaking out about the cause of the Olympics and so on. Very inventive and interesting idea there. And GE, of course, is supplying all these extra equipments for health maintenance and all that, and plus they're putting all these extra facilities to show their presence, for instance. And the Dow Chemical is the one that supplies all these chemical supplies that needs to be that are used to maintain the ice links and all that kind of stuff. And there are lots of other things that's going on, and different companies are supplying different things. But Coca-Cola and McDonald's actually, to work on their image as an instant food supplier, they're making a big deal about the fact that they're supplying this important good food to the athletes. So that's a big cause for them as well. And there are others such as good old names, good old Olympic names such as Omega Watch and others.
I suppose this could actually change their image as healthy food or healthy drink provider, as these athletes with good physique are eating up all these McDonald's and drinking Coke.
That's exactly the point about McDonald's and Coke in supporting these games.
Now, I heard Samsung Electronics distributed their smartphones to all the athletes. Now, was it all of the athletes?
Actually, all of the athletes, all 3,000 of them.
Wow.
Regardless of nationality here. And they're supplying, Galaxy Note 3, which is in Korean pricing, it's over 1 million won here in Korea. So it's very expensive.
Right.
So talking about, having to supply, having to spend close to like $100 million extra on top of the payment to IOC. I think Samsung is spending a lot more in that regard. The thing is, Samsung became the first official sponsor from, I think, 1998 Nagano Winter Olympic Games. At that time, Samsung was outside of the world's top 100 in terms of brand recognition. And now they're like world's one of top 10, top 8 they're talking about. So this is a huge jump. I'm sure it's not only the Olympic sponsorship that they owe to this kind of big jump there, but they're saying it's an important part of it, indeed.
It did play a big role in that.
Right, so it's indeed nothing that could be neglected there. The only thing is they really wanted to supply the Galaxy Gear. But the thing is, the tricky part was the Omega Watch. Galaxy Gear was viewed by the OECD, by IOC, as a watch equipment rather than what
Providing
Samsung,
time.
rather than what Samsung claimed. So that had to be excluded. So that was a slight disappointment for Samsung Electronics.
Right. So because IOC had categorized Samsung as a provider of mobile technology, as for Omega Watch was the provider of time. So I suppose that crossing kind of conflicted there.
Exactly.
Now, what about those who are not part of the official partners? I mean, we have been getting reports about companies who are not part of this doing ambush marketing.
Right.
I'm sure they feel like outsiders, right?
Right. They are, but they're doing all they can. Indeed. In marketing theory, in being taught in business schools, ambush marketing is classified as marketing activities through which these advertisers actually take advantage of particular events without actually paying the official, sponsorship fee there. So for that, many of the Korean companies are actually trying a lot, both in Sochi itself as well as here in the Korean home market itself. But the thing is, they have to play a very tightrope game here because they're not allowed to use, the official 2014 Sochi Olympic Games. So without using those names, they have to play interesting tricks by, showing the faces of the athletes, Korean athletes, trying to associate themselves with the game in direct way, but still promoting their image. So interesting motions and strategies that are being played out on TV and elsewhere here.
Right, definitely the Olympics is more than a sporting event now.
Absolutely.
With the economic impact, political, diplomatic, everything else being associated with this sporting event.
And for money, this is a very important occasion.
Definitely so. All right, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, thank you so much for today, and we'll talk to you again.
Okay, thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast, but stay tuned to ARIRANG. We have a lot more coming your way on Early Edition at 6.